Hi, it's Ian again, Martio. As you know, if you're wondering why I'm repeating, today I'm at a funeral to one of my friends, Gary. So I'm not doing anything live, but this is just in remembrance of Gary. Now, Gary was a subscriber from literally day one. Supported me and always spoke to me about what was going on when we met up. And the first album ranking that he asked for was Benatar. So here is Gary's request of me ranking Pat Benatar. Hope you enjoy it again. Greetings, it's Ian from RTO here. Welcome to another album ranking on Ladies' Day on RTO this month. This is the day where we just dedicate to female artists, bands that have contributed to the music industry. Today is actually a viewer's request. Well, it's not a viewer, it's one of my friends, Gary. Someone that I've known since the age of 13, so I've known him forever. And he asked me to do this lady after he'd watched the retro ranking that we did on it, and I thought, yep, no problem. So we're talking about Patricia May Giraldo, known to me and you as Pat Benatar. American rock singer and songwriter extraordinaire. In her home country of the United States, she has had 2 multi-platinum albums, 5 platinum albums, 15 Billboard Top 40 singles. In Canada, she's had 8 straight platinum albums. She's sold over 35 million albums worldwide. 4-time Grammy Award winner, and finally she's going to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in November. She should have gone last year because she actually won the voters poll. Yes, that's another subject, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but that's for another day. So today we're going to look at her 11 studio albums. I like Pat Benatar. There's another artist that I like, and I like all their albums. I've got no problem with them. So if yours, unfortunately, is not in my top 10 or my 11, the top 5, doesn't mean I don't like them. I just prefer different periods, like I do with most of them at the music. So let's get started. So coming in at number 11, we have the 6th album released in 1985, 7 The Hard Way. On here, of course, is Pat Benatar, an ever-present Mr. Neil Giraldo, Pat's husband and guitarist. We've got Charlie Durando on keyboards, Myron Gombacher on drums, Donnie Nossoff on bass guitar, and a host of people doing backup vocals. Lenny Castro on percussion, and up-down horns provide the horns on this one. First track on this album is a great song, one of my favourites. Sex is a Weapon. Really good track, good pop song, excellent stuff, like that one. Then we get La Belle Age, proper 80s sounding a bit, the whole sound, the guitar and drums. It's just such a shame because it is a really good track, and it's just that production that lets this one down. Walking in the Underground, great guitar solo here from Neil. It's more pop than rock though, which is a shame, but the guitar solo is pretty good. Big Life, not too bad. I don't mind this one, even though it's got the 80s overproduction. It's pretty good. Red Vision, more of that 80s pop rock, which I'm not a great fan of. I mean, I love 80s music, but I don't like what happened to rock in the 80s. I blame MTV for that, but that's another story again. Then we get 7 Rooms of Gloom, which is a Four Tops cover. I prefer the original. I don't like this. If this is overproduced, doesn't sound right at all. Although Pat does sing well on it, it just doesn't sound brilliant. Run Between the Raindrops. Pat sounds great on this, but it's the production. Invincible, which is a theme from The Legend of Billie Jean. It's alright. Nothing special. The Art of Letting Go. I don't know if this is supposed to be pop or rock, or because it sounds something more that Duran Duran would do than Pat Benatar, but Pat does sound good on it. This album, there's some really good songs on it, I can't deny that, but I don't like the production on it. Pat sounds great, her voice sounds great, but it's what they've done to the guitars and the drums. I just don't like the production, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 6 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 10, we go to the 8th album released in 1991, True Love. This album is a combination of covers and original tracks of Jump Blues. We've got Pat Benatar on here, Neil Girardo, Charlie Durando, Chuck DeManco on bass, Myron Grombacher on the drums, then the Roomful of Blues orchestra, which is Greg Piccolo on tenor sax, Doug James on baritone sax, Rick Littale on alto, Carl Kefirth on trombone, Ben Enos on trumpet, and John Rossi on the drums. First track is a cover called Bloodshot Eyes. Now this was recorded by Hank Penny and Ruth Hall and sung by Penny in 1950, but this version is stonking. That big band sound, Pat sounds fantastic on this, and I love the sax on it. It's just great sort of rock and rolly big band sound, really really good. Then she does a cover of a BB King song, Paying the Cost to Be the Boss. What a version. It's a great track anyway, just brilliant, love it. So Long, which is a Remus Harris song, which was recorded by Russ Morgan in 1940. They do a great version of this. It's fantastic. It came into the charts in 1940 as well for the Charioteers, but the best known version of it is by Ruth Brown, who released it in 1949. It's a long time. It's just a great atmosphere. Pat version is stunning, great vocal, hasn't lost any of that originality either, pretty good. Then we've got I've Got the Papers on You, another great song from BB King. I love her version. Neil does a great job on the guitar here, it's absolutely brilliant. Then we get a song called I Feel Lucky. Now this is an original song written by Neil Girardo and Myron Grombacher. Boy is this good. It's my favourite on here. It's that 40s, early 50s big brass sound. It's absolutely fantastic. Pat does a great vocal on this. Absolutely brilliant. Then we get True Love, which is another original written by Mr. and Mrs. Giraldo. Very speakeasy sort of thing. Smoky rooms and all that sort of thing. Fantastic voice Pat's got. Great track. Then we get The Good Life, which is another Giraldo Grombacher track. It's terrific. Just rock and roll with a great sax on it. Fantastic. Then we get Evening, a song that's been covered by quite a lot of people. Blue Hammer, T-Bone Walker. It's a great song. We've all probably heard this. This is probably the best version I've heard in a long time. Pat just absolutely kills it. Then we get I Get Evil, which was done by Tampa Red. Another great song. Again, Pat and the boys do a great job on that one. It's really good. Don't Happen to Me, which is a Young Jesse song from 1954. Great version. Then I think this must have been released over Christmas because it's got Please Come Home from Christmas. I think everybody's had a bash at this. From the Beach Boys, John Bon Jovi. To mention two, I like Pat's version. It's great. I think this is a great album. Okay, it's all covers, or majority of it, but it's got that, her voice really suits that style. I like listening to this album. I've only had it a couple of months and I love it. And I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 6.5. Really dry today. It's quite warm already. It's 11 degrees and it's first thing in the morning. That's better. Right, coming in at number 9 then, we have the third album released in 1981, Precious Time. As ever, we've got Pat Benatar and Neil Girardo, Scott St. Clair Sheets on rhythm guitar, Robert Capps on the bass, as ever Myron Gombacher on the drums, Alan Pasquat on piano, Gary Herbig, Joel Pensky, Tom Scott and Larry Williams, saxophones, and Keith Olsen plays the tambourine. Good old Keith. First track on here is Promises in the Dark, one of my favourite tracks. It's a lovely ballad from Pat singing, brilliant. Fire and Ice, another solid track. Love that bass line from Roger Capps. Pat's vocal on this, of course, it's fantastic. Then we get a cover, Paul Revere and the Raiders track. It's very good. Very similar sort of arrangement from the original, of course. And it's just a solid track. I don't think she's ever really done a bad cover. Precious Time, some lovely guitar work here from Neil. It's a nice song as well. Pat does a fine vocal on that one. It's a Tough Life. This is not a particular favourite of mine, but what I will say, Pat vocals good and Neil's guitar work. Take It Any Way You Want. I like everything part of the drums. I don't know what they did on the drums here, because Myron Gumbacher is a very good drummer, and they just sort of ruined his sound on that. Then we got Evil Genius, solid song, great guitar work here from Giraldo, fantastic. Hard to Believe, another great guitar solo from Neil. What a fine guitar player this man is. But it's the production that lets me down on this. Although Pat's puts a fine performance in. And then the album ends up with a Beatles cover of Helter Skelter. What a version of this. Pat can really rock, and I like that version. I think this is a very good album. As I said, I like all the albums. But again, it's got some of that production's a little bit 80s, and I think it sort of takes away the brilliance of some of these songs. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7 out of 10. Okay, then coming in at number 8, we get a 1984 now for Tropico. As ever, Pat Benatar and Neil Girardo, Charlie Durando's on the keyboards, Donnie Nossoff on the bass, the ever-present Myron Grombacher on the drums. We got Roger Capps making an appearance and Lenny Castro. First track is Diamond Field. It's alright, not one of my favourites on the album. Then we do get one of my favourites. I love this track, We Belong. Love Pat's vocal on this. One of the most catchy tunes that she did. She's got such a vocal range, and that is a terrific track. Painted Desert. I love the Spanish guitar on this at the beginning, but then it starts meandering and going just into a 80s generic song, which is such a shame because it had that potential to start really well with that Spanish guitar. Temporary Heroes. Oh, this is that horrible 80s percussion on it. What? I just don't understand why rock artists had to go down this line. Then we get Love Is the Battlefield, which is a song written by Holly Knight and a certain Mike Chapman. As you know, I did this thing on Mike Chapman, and this was toiled if I'd put it in my top 10 songs, but it missed out. But I still like this tune. You can tell it's a Mike Chapman song. Very, very catchy lyrics. It's a real good track. The Ooh song. I like this one. It reminds me of Bruce Springsteen. But what ruins it for me? You've got it. That drumming, that electronic sounding drums. I just don't like it. Spoils the song. The Outlaw Blues, again, it's not a bad song, but do we need a drum machine on this? No, we don't need drum machines on Pat Benatar albums. You've got a very good drummer. Suburban King, short track, but it's lovely. A Crazy World Like This, so 80s rock, but it's an okay track. Talking It Back. It's a pleasant enough track, but it's more 80. That's too 80s for me. I just don't like rock being mucked about with. Love in the Ice Age. It's not a bad track. It's that sound again. Just really, it's a great song, great vocal from Pat, but it's the mix just doesn't sound right. It needs remixing. A bit of a mixed bag on this album, I'm afraid. There are some great tracks on this, of course, but again, it's that 80s sound. I think this is an album that they need to take back into the studio and have a muck about with it and remaster it, because I think it'd come out the mix a little bit better. But I do like a lot of the songs on here. I like the lyric content and the vocal from Pat. Just the production that lets it down. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.1. Okay then, coming in at number 7, we go to the 10th album, released in 1997, Inamorata. This, of course, Pat Benatar and Neil Girardo. Got Mick Mahan on bass, Alison Cornell on violin and keyboards, Ray Brinker is now on the drums. We've got Doug Norween on saxophone, Susan Katayama on the cello, Scott Redman on percussion, and T. Lavitz on the Hammond B3. We get a guitar intro here from Neil, pretty cool. Then it goes straight into a track called Only You. Nice little track this is, nothing wrong with this one. I love the violin on this. Just reminds me of Robbie Steinhardt a little bit, which we'll talk about more tomorrow, of course. River of Love, not a bad track, really good guitar work here from Neil, like that one a lot. I Don't Want to Be Your Friend, it's got a very 60s pop feel to this. I do like Neil's guitar work on it, and Pat sounds great on this. Strawberry Wine, it's a pleasant enough track, got a real catchy tune to it. And again, Pat is just great on this. Her voice never seems to falter all the way through her career. I mean, this is later on in her career. She still sounds great. Then we get Purgatory. I think this is a little bit of a filler on this, but it's not a particularly good track. Papa's Roses. I love the acoustic guitar work on here from Neil. It's just a lovely tune, and Pat sounds great. At this time, again, a catchy true tune. Nice drumming on this one. Like that track a lot. Dirty Little Secrets. Pleasant enough. I've got no problem with this one. It just lacks a bit of oomph in places. The last track is called, this is the title track, Imrata. I love this. It's my favourite track. So it's acoustic guitar sounding. It's just a very pleasant tune. Okay, this album, there are a few tracks that are a little lackluster, do lack a little bit of something. It's a pleasant enough album though. It's not one that you go, well, I don't want to listen to this anymore, but I do like it, so I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 7.2. Okay, coming in at number 6, we go to the 11th album. Released in the summer of 2003, and it's the first release since 1997, the Benatar album, and this is just called Go. We've got Pat on here and Neil, Mick Mahan on the bass, Ray Brinker, Denny Fungheiser, Dave Carasoni, Matt Lang do the drums between them. First track is the title track, Go. I love this. Heavy as you like. This is one of the heavier tracks from Pat and Neil, and I think it's great. Great singing from Pat. She still sounds as good as ever. Then we get Brave, not a bad song. Got some nicer guitar on here on from the acoustic. Nice song. I Won't. More great riffs from Neil. Drives the song along. Pat's vocals, top draw stuff as usual. Have It All. This is one of them good songs. You get a mixture of guitar riffs, you get some nice acoustics, and then you get some strong electric riffs with it. Really good song. Sorry, that's one of the, I'd say it's one of the weaker songs on the album. It's not particularly brilliant, it's not bad, it just sits there. Please, excuse me, Please Don't Leave Me. I'm not a particular fan of this because it includes something called a drum machine, but Pat sings on it very well. We get a track called Girl, a really good track, great work guitars from Neil. One of my favourite tracks on this album, and Pat sounds fantastic as ever. Out of the Ruins, good song. Love the string arrangement on this, and Pat sings good on it again. In My Dreams, this is more of a folky sort of song. Very good, very good. Then we get Tell Me. We got one of them tracks with mixtures of acoustic and electric guitars with some great track, some lovely keyboard textures on this one as well. Broken Hearted, I like this track. Nice string arrangements on this, and it's got a catchy tune, and Pat sings brilliant. I think this is one of Pat's better albums of the later years. I hadn't heard much on this. It's got some heavy tracks on it, really heavy guitar tracks, and I'll give this an RTO ranking of 7.5. Okay, coming in at number 5, then we go to the 9th album, released in 1993, Gravity's Rainbow. As usual, we've got Pat Benatar and Neil Girardo. Frank Links plays bass on this, Myron Grombatcher's on the drums, and we've got Greg Piccolo on saxophone, Richard Dodd on the cello, and Dante Sucher on violin. Pictures of a gone world, pretty weird, but the vocal's good, and the piano on here, it sounds really good. Neil Girardo, it's fantastic piano work. Everybody Lay Down, that'd be a good idea. This is a catchy tune, great vocal from Pat, I like that track. Somebody's Baby, again, Pat just sounds phenomenal in the, you know, still on vocals. Neil's guitar work is awesome on this as well, like that track a lot. Ties That Bind, some brilliant guitar work from Neil, some great drumming from Myron Gombacher as well, terrific track. You and I, solid track. Neil really shines on this album with his guitar work along with Pat, absolutely brilliant. Then we get Disconnected, I love this. Dynamite vocal from Pat, great solo from Neil, all round good song. Crazy, nothing to do with the other the older Crazy, but it's done in that style that's all good old fashioned rock and roll as well. Great track, brilliant. Every Time I Fall Back, not a particular favourite that sticks out for me, but it's okay. Sanctuary, great little rocker. We got some Hammond organ on this, which is always good on a track, really good stuff. Then we get Rise. This is all about Neil Girardo's acoustic guitar, sounds lovely, and it's a bluesy acoustic sound, which I always like. I like the bluesy guitar on acoustic, really good. Kingdom Key, strong vocal here from Pat, absolutely brilliant. Trading Down, real weird drumming on there. It sounds like he's hitting a tin can, but it's a good hard rocker, and I think that this one, that different drum sound actually fits what we're going on here. I would say this is probably Pat's best album from the later years. It's got some terrific guitar work from Neil, and I'd say this is probably some of the best guitar work that he's put down on tracks for his good lady. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.6. Okay, then coming in at number 4, we get to the 7th album, released in 1988, Wide Awake in Dreamland. Usual suspects on this one that are playing from that period. We got Pat Benatar, Neil Girardo, Myron Gombacher on the drums. Fernando Saunders is on the bass now. Frank Linkster some bass. Charles Durando and Kevin Savard on keyboards. Bo Castro's on percussion. We've got Neil Gilder on backing vocals on Don't Walk Away and Cool Zero. Carmen Twilly, Phyllis St James do some backgrounds as well. First track is my favourite track by Pat Benatar. All Fired Up. Cracking track. And of course the album version is totally different to the single, because they miss out that great bit of guitar at the beginning on the single version, but it's an absolute belter of a track. One Love, I love this track. Catchy tune, production on it is pretty good, excellent track. Let's Stay Together. Oh, Pat's voice on here, bit of a gravelly voice on this, but it really sounds good. It shows what a great singer she is. Some great guitar work. Even Goran Batcher's drums are a bit different on this, but it really makes this sound track a little bit different. Don't Walk Away. This has got features Nick Gilder. He wrote it and he sings on the back of it. It's a really good track. Too Long a Soldier. This is a obviously late 80s. It's got that 80s feel to it, but there's none of that 80s production on it that makes it what I'd call that cleanness. It's a little bit edgy, raw, pretty good. Cool Zero, love that guitar riff at the beginning of that. Pat sings brilliant on that one. Absolutely brilliant track. Cerebral Man, I just don't like that track. It's probably one of the worst tracks on the album. I've got nothing good to say about it. Lift Them On Up, drums and bass are brilliant on this. Really crunchy drum sound, that groovy bass line, and then Neil comes in with Pat, and it's just a great track. Suffer the Little Children, even though the percussion is a little bit different, really adds the atmosphere to this track. It's a really good vocal from Pat as well. Title track, Wide Awake in Dreamland, one of the good tracks on this album, really good sound on it. I love Neil's guitar work on this, it's one of the best on the album. I would say this is from that mid-80s period. This is the best album of that period. Although it's got that 80s feel to it, the guitar is much richer on this. The drums sound good. It's not got that clean finish that 80s production good. It's actually got some good sound on it. And I think if the rest of the other two 80s albums had got the same sound on this, they would have been excellent albums as well. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 7.8. Okay then, coming in at number 3, you go to the debut album, released in 1979, In the Heat of the Night. Pat Benatar, Neil Girardo, Scott St. Clair Sheets on guitar, Roger Capps on the bass, Glenn Alexander Hamilton on the drums. Okay, first track was a big hit for her, Heartbreaker, which is actually a Jenny Darren cover. Great vocal here from Pat. Even though this is a cover, I think this is a great cover. Neil's guitar solo is even better than the guitar solo on the original, and I think Pat's singing on this is far better than Jerry Darren. Although the original is a very good version, I think Pat nails it, absolutely nails this, and this to me is the best version of this song. Second track again, we got another cover, I Need a Lover from John Mellencamp. Pat does this great. I mean, I love the original of course, but Pat's is brilliant as well. Then we had a track that we actually talked about the other day, If You Think You Know How to Love Me, which is a Smokey cover written by Mickey Chin. Mike Chapman and Nicky Chin was the money man. Obviously because Mike Chapman actually was a co-producer on this, and I love this song anyway from Smokey. It's a terrific song, and I think Pat does a great version of it. It's absolutely wonderful. Carrying on that theme, they do another Smokey cover, and why not? He's the producer, he wrote it, you can do it. Another great Smokey track is In the Heat of the Night. And Pat does a great version of it, but when you got Mike Chapman producing it, he knows exactly how he wants it, and I think she does a great version of that. Then we get an original song, My Clone Sleeps Alone. This is beautiful in places. It's got a great little rocker, then it just goes into some nice gentle stuff as well. What a track, excellent. Then we get We Live for Love. This is a original one, my favourite on the album, and I think it's got some great riffs. This is the sound that you was going to get from Pat and Neil. I think it's a terrific song. Then we get another cover. This is a Nick Gilder, who she's worked with, Rated X. This is a great version. I love the original, but Pat covers this fantastically, and I think it's probably a better version. Her vocal is a little bit better. Another cover version now, Don't Let It Show from the Alan Parsons Project. This is a great song. Difference is, obviously Alan Parsons is more proggy, this is more rocky, and I think both versions are great. I love Pat's vocal on that, it's terrific. Then she does a cover of one of my favourite bands from the 70s, another Mike Chapman song, No You Don't, from Sweet, which was off the Sweet Fanny Adams album. Steve Priest sang this, and this is the best cover on the album because Pat sings it fantastically. It's a great version and I love it. Then we get So Sincere, good little rocker here, really strong guitar solo from Neil, love that track. Well, I think this must be one of the highest ever rated covers albums that I've ever done, but there is a reason. She does some fantastic covers of these songs. The production's brilliant, of course, because it's Mike Chapman. I mean, you know, and why not use some of your songs? But I mean, the version of No Don't You on here is superb. It's a great album, and I love this album. So I'm going to give it an RTO ranking of 8 out of 10. Okay then, coming in at number 2, we go to the 4th album, released in 1982, Get Nervous. Pat Benatar, Neil Girardo, Charlie Girando, Roger Capps and Myron Grombacher are the musicians. Opens up with the brilliant Shadows of the Night, song that was composed for the film Times Square. Love the harmonies on this. Her voice is brilliant. What they did with her vocals on that is brilliant. Okay, next track, Looking for a Stranger. This is a cover of a Fran Gold, and Pat's version is absolutely brilliant. This came out originally in 1980, but for some reason Pat just adds to this. Her vocal is so stronger than Franny Gold's. Absolutely brilliant. Then we get Anxiety, Get Nervous. Great track, lots of energy on this. The guitar works great. Pat's on fire. Great track. Fight It Out. This is a really good track. It should have been written by Jim Steinman. That's how good it is. It's got that feel of one of his songs, but I just think it's great. It's got a great guitar solo from Neil. The Victim, another great track, good rocker, great vocal here from Pat. Really hits them notes, does old Pat on that one. Then we get Little Too Late. Nice harmonies in this. Pat's voice just sounds fantastic. I'll Do It. It's okay. It's pretty mediocre up until the middle, and then you get this great drumming guitar which really lifts this song towards the end. It starts meandering about, and then all of a sudden it comes in, and it's really, really good. I Went Out. It's an okay track. It's not probably one of my favourites of this album. Tell It To Her. Love the bass line on here for Mr. Capps. I think it's Mr. Capps playing on it. Yes, it is. It's a really good bass line, and put on top of that you got the great guitar riffs from Neil. Pat singing out of her skin, brilliant. Silent Partner, probably one of Pat's finest vocals on this album. Just superb, and of course Neil always turns in a good performance on the guitar. Solid album. Well, a couple of tracks that are not my favourites, but a lot of this album is great. It's a great listen, real good rock, and I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 8.5. Okay, my favourite Pat Benatar album. My number one. It's been my number one for a long time. Came out in 1980. Crimes of Passion, and it was the second album. Obviously we've got Pat Benatar and Neil Girardo on here, Scott St. Clair Sheets on the guitar, Roger Capps on the bass, Myron Gombacher on the drums. I think this is. I love that when this group was together. They did really rock. First track is a great track. Treat Me Right. Love this track. Great rocker. What a way to start this album. Then she puts another cover on. Now this is a track that's not remembered. The Young Rascals, You Better Run. This is a really good song. I mean, the original was fantastic. Bit different for the time. I prefer Pat's version because it's a lot heavier. The bass line is really rich in this, and they really add something to this track. It's a really good track. That's what makes this a better version. Never Wanna Leave You. This reminds me of the stuff that the Police were doing at the time. The drumming is very similar to Stuart Copeland. I love this track, and I think that's why I like it, because it reminds me so much of the Police. Hit Me With Your Best Shot. The classic. One of my favourite tracks on the album. One of my favourite tracks by Pat Benatar. Just love that guitar riff. Very, very catchy, and it's got a really good guitar solo on it as well. Then there is my favourite track on here, Hell Is For Children. I love how this starts off gentle and it just builds up and builds up. Some great guitar work here. Variations of Pat singing on here shows what a strong singer she is on this track. Then we get Little Paradise. Again, this is such a catchy riff from the moment it starts. The drumming on here is superb. Pat kills it. What a vocal from Pat on that one. Then we get I'm Gonna Follow You. Fantastic. Great guitar work on here. Pat hits them notes. Unbelievable song. Then we get a cover. Now this was a bold decision. This is Wuthering Heights. When I thought, God, this is going. When I heard this was on here when I first got the album, I thought, oh dear, what are they going to do to it? Okay, you'll never get anyone doing a better version than Kate Bush, but Pat did a damn good job on this. Sang it a little bit different. Neil Girardo's guitar solo, he's good on this. I've heard a few versions of this by people, and behind Kate's, this is the second best version. Very bold to do it. I do like this version. I know a lot of people don't, but that shows what a good singer Pat is, if she can take on tracks like Wuthering Heights. Terrific. Prisoner in Love. I love this. This is quite funky, but it's still got that classic rock solo in it. Good little track. Out of Touch. This is very post-punk in places. It's got a great riff in it. Real good rock. I like that track. This is a great album. Pat built on that fantastic debut album. Although there's a lot of covers on that, she built on the work they did on there and the versions that they done. And they took it and they did their own songs. Okay, we got Wuthering Heights on here, which isn't a bad track. I just think they just built on that debut album, and this is just an amazing album. If you think about it, to me this is really her first proper album. Although the debut is her dad, she did have the In Heat of the Night, but to me this is the first proper album we got from Pat, and it still amazes me how good it sounds today. So I'm going to give this an RTO ranking of 9 out of 10. Okay, there you go, Gary. Pat Benatar, fantastic songwriter, singer. She sings, her voice, she can sing anything. As I say, you're singing Wuthering Heights and you don't kill it. Terrific stuff. Okay, that's all for this edition. We'll be back with some retro ranking, and we're going to look at another superstar. Toya. Made some great stuff over the years. Fantastic actress. Married to Robert Fripp. What more? Okay then. I'll be back for that later. So have fun for now, and don't forget, if you like what you see, subscribe and hit the bell. Bye for now.